there's actually still quite a bit going on around Liverpool. Stories more than actual firmed up reality things. But we've had a very bright start. And we'll go straight to the Kerkez story, if that's okay with you, man, because that's the one that people will want to chat about. And, you know, we have certain names mentioned in our taglines there, so people are going to be excited about getting there. But let's start off with the most recent bit of business done, which is complete and has a lad doing a bit of scribbling. What do we know about the final deal here, Dave?
Yeah, great news, isn't it? 5-year deal suggested, up to 40 million. No one's quite given the full exact figure away, but it's interesting. No one's saying a deal up to 40 million, which makes you think it's not just a straight 40 million quid. And hey, it might be pennies and shillings for all we know, but absolutely great move. And we shouldn't just breeze past this. We've said before in these shows, like Florian Wirtz and now Milos Kerkez, starters, Trev, aren't they? They go straight into the starting 11. They improved the champion straight away. It's just, they're so unusually early in the window before we've even got into July as well. Liverpool have done 5 deals, but 2, especially this being one, they're stars, which is brilliant news. And then even this week, because we got Milos Thursday, which we thought would be Tuesday, it rumbled on, we wondered what had happened. And then they did another one, didn't they? Freddie Woodman. And everyone was like, when he signed, was like, who that is Freddie Woodman type of thing. So, yeah. Crucially, goalkeeper. Crucially, homegrown. 28, played for Preston for a good few years, leaves on a free transfer. It's a bit of a strange one in the sense of usually the keepers who fill their third spot, it's like Tom Heaton at United, 35, 36. Same with Scott Carson at City. It's usually someone's pension top-ups. I mean, people get upset by this, but we kind of wasted space on Adrian for a year or so, didn't we, realistically? But, yeah, good option. Probably will never, ever play for Liverpool behind Alisson and Marmadashvili, but 2 signings in a week. And, again, we shouldn't just breeze past this, Trev, because it's not even July, and the Reds have done 5 deals already. There's not a chance at the start of this window or going back months, we'd thought they'd have that many through the door and more to come as well. What a start it's been.
So let's face it, 3 starters. I think we're looking at the first signing of the window being a starter as well. I think that's going to be the case. And then, as you say, another couple of bits of business, interesting bits of business. Just talk to me a little bit about this Woodman thing, because people didn't really see it coming, like you said. He is in that sort of middle phase of his career for a goalkeeper, which means that he's probably as good as he's going to get, and yet he's not in the veteran class. So what I think an awful lot of us would be wondering about was, what happens if the calamitous scenario occurs where Ali's crocked and then Mamardashvili gets a kick in the head and he's out for a couple of games and we have to go to this dude? Well, I mean, I'm assuming there was some number crunching done with him when it comes to his underlying statistics, because that's how we seem to recruit. There would surely be a good, highly rated young English-British goalkeeper who we could have gotten for not massive money. So it would speak to the fact that this guy must be actually rated, despite the fact that he's not playing in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's a weird one, because you do wonder what sort of salary, what he's taken in that regard. I remember that Andy Lonergan, who came as the third goalkeeper for a while and never played, he did a pod once where he talked about his time at Liverpool, saying, yeah, I never played, but the best thing ever was the bonuses I got at the end of that time made it my highest ever earnings by an absolute country mile. And maybe Freddie Woodman's thought that, yeah, maybe, because he probably is likely never going to play. But like you said, if he ever has to, he did play 38 times or had 38 starts for Preston in the Championship last season out of 46. So it's an sort of accomplished level, isn't it? You know, he's not just someone sort of fly by night or in the Sunday League at all. It's just, yeah, it's an odd one. you do feel like if he wanted to keep playing football at a decent level, he could have quite easily, but maybe it's the temptation of getting some trophies on your CV, decent bonuses at the end of it, and it's a non-homegrown spot ticked off for us, eh?
Yeah, listen, it just seems very, very sensible.
Yeah.
I want to throw in the Andy Robbo situation here, because that's changed a little bit. Last show we did, it looked quite unhealthy, the situation. Now it looks like it's passed away in terms of the Atletico deal. I'm still very much of the opinion that he's going to want to be a first team footballer, and he's not a daft lad. He can see the writing on the wall. We'd all love Robbo to stay around, fight for his place, maybe even surpass Kerkez. Wouldn't that be the dream? That Kerkez had to play second fiddle for another year or a season or season and a half or something like that. That would be fantastic, because Robbo's doing so well. But it feels, doesn't it, that, you know, there's a statement of intent there in that price tag that we've paid for Kerkez that might suggest Robbo's days are numbered. And the lad who's more content with playing backup will be the one who hangs around. But we have three now. It's very, very likely one of them is going to go. Do you think, has it switched in your head as to which is the more likely of him and Tsimikas to depart?
It is a weird one, because you're right, 3-1, 2 doesn't go. One of them's got to move on. You can't have three left backs. No team, unless you're Chelsea, of course, does that type of thing. But the fact was, for the Robbo situation, it seems to have collapsed on the basis that we know who his agency is. We know who his, agent, lead and all that's involved. We're trying to get him out on sort of a cheap free transfer or a very small nominal fee, which Liverpool are like, no, we're not agreeing to that still. So Atletico have pivoted, haven't they? They've gone and got another left wing back from Atalanta. Think about it practically. Tsimikas has made all the noises that he's quite happy to stay, and actually, this is the Broadway stage, as he calls it. He's quite happy playing 15, 20 games rather than being a starter at a lesser team. That's what he said publicly. Robbo, our info, as we said on this show a few times, is that was quite happy to look at that move and seemed, one that was happy for all parties, as long as a fee had have been agreed. Kerkez as well. I know some people will love Robbo, and I get it. He's been an absolute legend, but you're not spending 40 million quid on a left back for him to sit on the bench, really, are you? We know he's coming straight into the starting lineup. It's that pace, it's that energy. We know what Arne Slot is looking for there. I honestly, my gut is telling me all three come back in a week's time or so, isn't it, in pre-season. Arne Slot has a chat, see where their heads are at a little bit, and in either a week or two's time, we get something. This is a complete guess, by the way. My gut is telling me right now that Tsimikas might just be told he'll be third choice, even though I know people will say Robbo, the chance to leave and all that. But Robbo is a leader. He is respected in the group. He's very well liked at the club. I just wonder if they'll be willing to sort of push him out too hard. But honestly, I'm sounding like a politician. I get this answering this question, because Tsimikas is good friends with Salah, isn't he? And all those types of things. Long story short, someone's getting punted. I don't know who. I really don't, Trev.
Yeah, it's right up in the air. I'm confused myself, because I had thought it was sticking out a mile. Robbo was just going to go. And now I'm not so sure. A combination of a few things, all the kind words from Kerkez suggesting maybe that he is hoping to make a good impression on Robbo. He was very complimentary about him. The Atletico thing falling through suggests to me that Liverpool weren't happy to take the insultingly small amount of money that they were offering. I think that's what it was, because we already know they turned down, wasn't it the Everton left back for 10 million, because they were quoted 10 million. So they're obviously operating in a very, very low budget area. The club weren't happy with that. I don't think they'll stand in Robbo's way if it comes down to a couple of million here or there. It's an interesting one to see, and we're just speculating, but there are lots of different things that could be at play here for sure. Let's get on to another story where we actually have some progress, but it's not necessarily of the most optimistic kind Darwin Nunez is the most likely nailed on exiter from the club. The way things have panned out, it's really, really interesting. You and I have heard a lot of bits and bobs, and I think most people are aware of the stories of what happened around Christmas time. And we had both individually on this show and on different shows, certainly I was doing it on Raw, suggested, I don't think that lad's head has been in it since that window, or heart even, because that's the one thing about Nunez was that heart that you fully expect all the time. And he just seemed an absolute ghost of himself. And it was just unfortunate. It was an unfortunate way for things to wrap up, but wrap up they have. There can be no doubt about it. Nunez is going. And Napoli were the ones who were in the box seat for him. But what we feared, Dave, was that they were going to offer, a couple of bars of chocolate and a second-hand tire. And it seems as if they did lowball. And we were expecting it. You had warned people that it was definitely going to happen. Is this one dead now because of how ridiculously low the offer was?
The thing that's so hard to predict is all the news coming from the Liverpool side is still that because of that Saudi bid that obviously fell through in the deal, that they still value Nunez in that sort of 60 to 70 million euros, range. They want a certain amount to do the deal. Now, digging around on this one this week, as you know, the actual interesting thing is people will be, there's only Napoli. There is a raft of interest in Nunez, and I mean that, a raft of interest in Nunez. The problem you've got is people want loans, or as soon as you tell them the price, are like, nah, we need to halve that to start sort of negotiating. Like loads of interest from Italy, Spain, no doubt at all. The problem you've got now is Napoli and Liverpool are just so far apart, it seems, in the valuations. Napoli, like any club would do, let's just be clear, are lining up their alternative, aren't they? Lorenzo Luca, Udinese and Italy international. And as it says, they can pull the trigger on that at any time. Now, in fairness to them, it's the right thing to do. Liverpool do it. If you think you're going to pass up a player or you're not going to do a deal, you line up the alternative. So we can't get too fussy, too upset with this. You just wonder, and this sounds so bad, but it's where we are now. What's the minimum Liverpool will take for Darwin Nunez? Because all this talk that they're still, that seems to be publicly coming out that, 60, 70, forget it. No one's going to pay that, are they, for Darwin Nunez? It just almost wonders how big a cut, nosebleed are they prepared to take. I honestly think we're at the stage now where if you can get Napoli to around, like 50 million, even with add-ons or something like that.
Pounds or euros, Dave?
Well, this is the tough bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
I honestly think if you could do a deal for 45 million quid, pounds, sterling, I would just be doing it now because I just have the feeling this rumbles on if we don't do the Napoli one. And you end up accepting something stupid at the end of the window and having just wasted time.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's one that's going to be analysed, isn't it, Dave? Because we wound up with Darwin, like I say, very much a shadow, a shell of himself, and it's got to do with his mental state, and his mental state has got to do with the fact that he wasn't fancied by the manager.
Yeah,
he wasn't preferred by the manager. He was told he could leave by the club and the manager. So in many ways, it's a kind of a shot into our own feet, really, in terms of how the season finished for him and the impression he's left over the last 6 months. It's going to be interesting to watch, but just to reassure people as well, it's not just Napoli. Like, just to reiterate that point you made, there are many, many clubs who are looking to lowball us for Darwin Nunez, but there is a lot of interest.
Oh, yeah. If we were to place Darwin Nunez in B&M bargains or home bargains tonight, like, the interest would be there galore. Like, absolutely. We've had that from a number of people stood up, that there is interest, but as soon as Liverpool quote their price, the phone goes down pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the awkward situation we're in now. Where we're not really stuck is for interest in a lot of our youngsters. Bacetic, Tyler Morton, who's recently shown himself well on the under 21 international stage. Ben Doak. We've got Beck attracting a bit of interest. Maybe McConnell. And possibly Trey are the two that we're thinking will hang around. Can you go through the various clubs who are interested? Because I know even Paul Joyce had a story around Tyler Morton yesterday or today.
Yeah, literally this afternoon, and doing some digging around with this one. There is a lot of interest in Tyler Morton, as Paul Joyce is pointing there, from Europe and England, that Braga in Portugal have got massive interest in him. Ajax also have got interest in him. The big one as well that we had, as you know, from digging around, that West Ham have got huge interest in Tyler Morton. Graham Potter especially has spoken to Tyler Morton, like a big, big fan of him, so they'll try for him. So, yeah, in a good way, and he puts the assist in for the winner, doesn't he, in the Euro Under-21 final. It's a great move for this kid because he deserves to be playing first-team football. We'll probably get some decent money, somewhere around 10 million or over, on the books for that one. You mentioned a few others. Lewis Steele also said around Bajcetic, and others have said there's quite a few enquiries for him. Everyone's just waiting to see him get fit, aren't they, after that hamstring operation, to see what's happening. But there is an expectation he will shift out on loan that way. Owen Beck, I mean, the weirdest combination that he's been linked with in the last week or so. Glasgow Rangers and Ryan Reynolds Wrexham. Such a weird combination, aren't they, there, realistically, of where he could end up or has been linked with in terms of permanent moves and on loan, so that's worth mentioning. Ben Doak, yeah, he's been linked almost as part of a swap deal or a bargain make weight, hasn't he, for a certain other player we're trying to bring into Palace, which we'll talk about shortly. But no shortage of interest in Ben Doak from, again, Premier League clubs, so we'll see if anything develops with that one. The two you mentioned are really interesting because young Trey Nyoni turns 18 today, so happy birthday to this kid. So they've got him his permanent contract, that new long-term that he signed. And speaking to people, massive hopes around this kid. Liverpool love him. Arne Slot loves him as well. The only question mark around young Trey Nyoni is the physicality element, isn't it? Can you almost... Back in the day, don't they giving him steak and chips and Guinness and stuff like that? Ronnie Moran would have, wouldn't he, to sort of get him built up, as it were, doing certain work. So it's whether that physical development comes and at what speed will define whether he stays or whether he goes. That's the key indicator we've got. This pre-season will be keen for him. Has he developed physically? Not as a player, they like him that way, but do they think he's ready? Do they think he's best served by a loan? But the other one to really mention as well, as you said, James McConnell. Now, there's multiple reports this week that, and this is true, having dug into it, Arne Slot loves James McConnell. You know, his passing ability, his physicality, that sort of, got a bit of spike to his game, as they say, but with ability. They really like this kid, and actually, they've got him earmarked almost for the Endo role, you know, like the sixth choice midfielder type of thing, or fifth choice that could come in and play a few minutes, which naturally throws question marks around Endo and what it means for him, because he's talking about staying around, isn't he, at the same time? But also, it does have a knock-on effect here for Trey, because all the indications are Nyoni's such a talented kid and, you know, his ceiling's huge, but just right now, and understandably, because he's a bit older, McConnell is ahead of him in the pecking order, mainly because of age, physical development, and that type of thing. So I am intrigued to see what's going to happen with a lot of these kids. I mean, it's honest to say, Trev, that a lot of them could well not be Liverpool players, could they, by the new season? Some cash in the coffers, especially for the PSR elements. But McConnell and Trey are the two that decisions still to be made on. But the full suspicion is McConnell stays, Trey, late decision in pre-season.
Yeah, and both of them, though, the decisions around them seem to be with a view to them being at the club long term, whereas not the case for those other kids who broke through under Klopp. And to be fair, most of us, when watching McConnell come through, you could see there was something about him. He had a little bit of extra presence, and Nyoni has that little bit of spark of brilliance about him, and again, the bravery on the ball, which makes a difference. So you'd love to see both of them getting whatever the next stage of development is in and effective. We have obviously another young fella in Harvey Elliott who was playing, what was it, a year over age at the under 21 tournament there, and certainly put himself in the shop window in terms of his form. I've seen many people have a go at denigrating it, saying that, you know, he's older than a lot of them, but it's very small margins, to be fair. And, you know, he also just did the business and took advantage of an opportunity he had to, for his own career, put himself in the shop window. And that you've been saying all the way through, since before it was even really popular to be saying that Harvey Elliott was definitely going to go. When we started doing these before the season had ended, we had a couple of little sneaky ones. And you've been saying there's a lot of interest in Harvey, and there has been. He's a player that interests a lot of Premier League clubs. And I saw someone today, and I thought it was quite. I found myself nodding in agreement, saying that they hoped he didn't end up at some perpetual mid-table to lower mid-table club where he's just going to be getting loads of games and maybe playing well and all the rest of it, but never with a chance of winning, because we've seen him, and the kid is a winner. He's been at Liverpool and he's won trophies, and he's been part of the picture. You'd like to see that continue for him. If it's not going to be in a red shirt, and a lot of people, Dave, they saw that tournament, they said, please keep him. I could see my timeline, whatever night that England game was on. I'm sensible enough man not to be watching under 21 international football in the summer. But you can see people's reactions, and they were very much saying, please, let's keep Harvey. And one or two people saying, let's bomb out somebody else instead, like, you know, maybe, you know, take your pick. So where are we in terms of the clubs that seem to have the firmest interest? We know Newcastle were there or thereabouts. There was a talk about Brighton, but I think both of those were with Harvey as some sort of, let's massage the numbers because we're taking someone back the other way. That was the idea there. Are they still live, interesting links for us, regardless of whether we get someone coming the other way? And who else is involved?
Yeah, we mentioned, like you said before, that Newcastle, although again, that was when Paul Mitchell was there, he's moved out. So there's a bit of uncertainty. Would there still be interest? And you have to be careful talking about Newcastle because some people get a bit sensitive around them and us right now and all the connections around that one. Yeah, Wolves absolutely still interested, but this does sound horrible. Again, this is not trying to be derogatory to Wolves, but he's not going to win trophies there or probably get his full ability expressed at a club like Wolves, is he? You know, I'm not sure that's a great move for him. And there's a raft of interest. And what you've got to be honest, Trev, based on the tournament, what was 40 million has probably now moved up to 50 million, hasn't it, in asking price or closer to that mark, and quite rightly. The other one, or the other two, sorry, I should say, that again, I've looked at the player and it could be linked to exits, is what we've had on this. Been told to keep an eye again on Brighton, especially when João Pedro is set to go, and West Ham. But West Ham would be more likely if Kudus is to depart. This could be one to keep an eye on as well. But the other thing to say is the price tag now with Harvey Elliott, if it is going to go around or towards the 50 million quid mark, it's the Premier League, isn't it? It's only a Premier League club that's going to pay that type of money. Every links to Red Bull Leipzig, Leverkusen, all that, they're dead. There's no way those clubs are going to pay that type of money. And also, they won't get the benefit of the homegrown tax as well, would they? Or the player that, you know, suits them there. So it is going to be the Premier League, which will happen. He will inevitably move on. That's the suspicion. And fair play to him. He will have a good number of suitors, but West Ham Brighton wants to keep an eye on, we've been told, but linked to Kudus' departure and keep an eye when João Pedro departs as well.
I think you and I are very much the same in the way that we view things, Dave, in that at the end of the day, we tend to be quite, I won't say cynical, but not overly sentimental in the way that we view things. It's hard not to be sentimental about Liverpool players because you grow very attached to them and you imprint on them. And I think an awful lot of people have a lot of fondness for Harvey Elliott, myself included. And it doesn't hurt that he's so mad about the club as well, and it's such a big part of his life. I would love him to stay and be successful, but here's the thing. It doesn't really matter what I want or what anyone in the chat box wants or what anyone out there in the listening community or YouTube audience wants. It will come down to whether or not Arne Slot's going to play him, and he did not want to play him. So that's the reality of it. And if he's going to move, we're talking about a move, and we're talking about, so someone saying, imagine wanting, McConnell to stay and Harvey Elliott to leave. Well, the only one who wants that is the manager. At the end of the day, that's the shout that matters, not ours, not our preference. We'd love to see all our lads hang around and do well, but so watch this space with Harvey Elliott. Very interesting. Like Dave says, he certainly added to his price tag, you'd imagine, with his star boy performance at that tournament. Now, we thought, you and I, and it may still happen, we're now recording at 7:02 on the 30th of June. We thought that maybe we might have a little Kwanzaa, not quite a bomba because we know the story's happening, but we thought we might have some news of the move being permanent and finalised to Leverkusen. You have some insights around the medical, the times, and let's lead out of that and into the story that just won't go away. And it depends on who you're reading as to where we are with Marc Guehi. Some people suggesting that the club have a very cynical attitude and they're prepared to wait a full season for this kid to get him for nothing, a la Real Madrid, if it suits us. But of course, there's the complication in the background all the time of the Ibu Konate contract. So let's start with where we are with Kwanzaa and go to Guehi and maybe have a word or two on Ibu's contract as well, if there's anything new.
Yeah, we are just waiting. I mean, UK time, he started his medical with Leverkusen at about 7:30 this morning. So a lot of people are probably expecting maybe it to have been announced or it might be done. We might just be waiting for everything to be ratified. But yeah, it's just waiting for that. Everyone knows it's done. 30 million plus 5 million add-ons. The buyback clause that comes valid in 2 years. It is just waiting for the announcement and a good luck to the kid to come through. Which then, back to the old nightclub bouncer, we're all waiting for one in, one out, because there's no way Liverpool will go into next season with 3 centre-halves, especially when one is Joe Gomez and another is Ibu Konate. And this won't go away. This is clearly something Liverpool are trying to do. Marc Guehi, Crystal Palace, England international. Now, obviously, with our WhatsApps, we had this, didn't we, on about the 19th of June, someone saying to us, they're all trying to do a deal around 40 million. Palace on the north side, us on the south side a little bit. And funnily enough, various reports in the last day or so that there is a gap still in the valuations. Palace saying 55, us saying 30. Always as starting points to somehow meet in the middle. But it is interesting. It feels like, I'm going to call it a game of transfer chicken, because Liverpool have put it out there to say, obviously, we think 45, 50 million bracket is ridiculous. It needs to come down from that. And if Palace won't come down, we will move on and look at alternatives. And obviously, we know the names have been quoted like Jurel Hato and others in the mix. There's been the stories, hasn't there, about, he could stay for a year, game time and all that bit as well. Although a few journalists have had this, and David Lynch even said it on Media Matters from the Liverpool side. The briefing is that's been chatted about. There would be game time for Guehi. That's not a concern. It's all just this price tag negotiation. Can we get a deal that all parties are happy with? And it is important to say, Liverpool will never be bullied into anything. We know they set the line. They won't go above it. And if Palace won't meet the line, we move on. But at the same time, this has rumbled for a while. We mentioned Guehi almost last summer, didn't we? We mentioned him again. This is a player the club have looked at and liked for a while. He fills a homegrown spot. If it isn't him, it's quite clear it's going to be an 18 to 22-year-old in that range, but this is the one Liverpool want to do. And again, we're speculating like we always do on the transfer show. I do think a deal gets done because the player wants it. Palace don't really want to let him go on a free. It feels like a smart compromise from all sides should be reached, but you never know 100%. And yeah, the Ibu one, every time someone tweets about this, we've had some dodgy sources tweet about it. Someone from the Ibu camp, whether it be a family member, goes, nonsense, we've never asked for that, don't believe everything you read. But why is there no noise then on the positive side? Why is there no noise ever since Paul Joyce, as we said before, released that story that all the way back in, I think, September, October time it was, wasn't it, to say talks are close with Quansah and Konate, they're both expected to be done. As we said, Real Madrid and PSG got in his ear since then. They can get more wages from them. Of course they can. Liverpool have put the line in the sand. We know they're negotiating with his agent, but all the suggestions are now from Liverpool's side, they are prepared to run this into the season, a la Salah, Van Dijk, and that situation to try and get it done and carry on speaking. But I think if it does run into this season, we all know what that really suggests, hand on heart, if we're honest. I know people want to deny it, but I am now at the stage, being honest, and I want to be surprised. I've said this before. I want to be wrong on this. I want to be wrong that Ibu Konate signs a new deal. Do I expect it? From what we've heard, not at all.
Yeah, the Konate thing is there's just no real concrete info from anyone. The only thing we know is that the contract is not signed. As you say, if it goes into the season, we'll be watching and listening and interpreting everything the lad says 15 ways from Sunday to see, does he want to stay, does he want to go, blah, blah, blah. We are all aware of the rumours that his head has been turned by the idea of Real or PSG. So it's interesting. We'll have to watch it. A lot of people chatting. It's interesting and really gets the chat going there. People talking about, I'll keep him, let him go on free at the end of it. Other people, they'd rather sell their granny than allow that happen again. You know, it's up there. There's one little wrinkle in this I wanted to throw back at you, because we see the stories going around that Crystal Palace are lining up a move for Sporting Lisbon's kid, Ousmane Diamand. So bear with me here. He's in that bracket you talked about, the 18 to 22, right? He's a highly rated young talent. Should we just do that?
Yeah.
Is there Liverpool interest that's been registered in that kid?
Yeah, there's definitely been interest. It just seems that for whatever reason, Guehi is well ahead of the pecking order, because I don't want to sound derogatory in case Crystal Palace fans are watching, but if we wanted Diamande, we could go in and trump Palace quite easily, couldn't we, in terms of what we could offer him, wages and all those types of things. It's just being factual about how it stands right now. But for whatever reason, they like Guehi clearly ahead of Diamande. It is interesting. It's one thing that you do wonder, these guaranteed game time, what is it that's ultimately made them settle on Marc Guehi? And like you said, everyone's got split opinions on this, haven't they? Because if you look at the chat panel, you range him from potential world beater to absolute donkey almost at the same time, can't you? You don't get a consensus on it, really. So I get that. I did think that. And Diamande's a player that Liverpool have looked at in the past, but it's quite clear the people in charge are plumping for Guehi well ahead of him.
Now, be patient, those of you in the chat panel who've mentioned Diaz, Gyökeres. Diaz and Gyökeres stories are coming later. But for now, we have a great one to finish with. I say a great one. It's a good story. There's nothing coming out of it solid yet, but it's just very interesting. This is one Dave dropped on me at the last minute today that I didn't really know the details of. So talk to us about wide forwards, Dave, if you would, please, because this is interesting.
I'll be honest, this one pissed me off a little bit. It was like getting told Scarlett Johansson chapped at the door for you yesterday, but you weren't in and wanted to take you out, but could only do Sunday night type of thing. So, as is on the screen there, has been mentioned, Liverpool have looked at wide forwards who can also play for the middle. We've heard it talked about that Slot likes a player that can play across the front line as well. And the names have been mentioned. People know, like your Anthony Gordon's, your Malik Fofana's, the ones that people like. But doing a bit of digging on this, I didn't really want to get told this, but ultimately, the top target, or the one they had a really good look at and were keeping us, a big eye on and wanted, if obviously a Newcastle striker didn't come off, Morgan Rogers at Aston Villa. That's the one who they really had their eye on, which makes all the sense in the world, doesn't it, from where he can play across the front line. I think that kid's special. What's sort of thrown a dart to the heart of that one is the fact that PSR doesn't really exist anymore, does it? Because in case people didn't clock it, Villa today, as the David Ornstein bomber said, are pretty much set to sell their women's team to AV Holdings for about 55 million quid. Yeah, a la Chelsea with the stadium, all the bits as well. Because let's be honest, that loophole hasn't been closed. So PSR is effectively dead. Because whatever happens there, you can just sell your women's team or your stadium to a holding corporation, can't you? As you phrased it well, creative accounting, can't you? And as we said, we got to respect it in a way. Sweeney Todd and his boys found that loophole. But the sadness for me was I didn't really want to get told that Morgan Rogers thing. So, yeah, it looks like that was one we were really looking at, but near on impossible now, eh?
Yeah, a player I think that would have gotten everybody excited as a potential Liverpool signing. Really, really exciting talent. I agree with you. I think the kid's special. And like you, I prefer it. I hadn't known. An awful lot of people responding, I think, in the way that you would expect to the news about Aston Villa's creative accounting. But here's the thing. You put in rules. What people do is they try to circumvent them. It doesn't really matter what the walk of life is, Dave, does it? Wherever the rules are, if you can make it work or bend them slightly in your favor, you'll do it. These people have employed very creative accountants, to use the phrase again, and they've found a way around it. So grudgingly, you say, I guess fair play, but it does make a joke of the whole thing, especially when you have the impression. Now, I think there's an impression, Dave, isn't there, of Liverpool as like goody two-shoes, top of the class boys who are just all trying to do things the right way. We've got clever people working for us as well, and we'll be bending things where we can bend them too, of course. But it does, like you say, kind of kill the concept stone dead if there's always a lever you can pull and sell your darts team to Liverpool Holdings, You
will like this. You will like this. As Aston Villa, Manchester City and Everton refer to us, Liverpool are one of the members of the Premier League cartel, apparently. Don't want the established, or play the goody two-shoes as we call it, but don't want the established order affected too much as well. So, yeah, that's how they see it. But think about it the other way. Are we selling our reserve team? Are we selling our training ground? Are we selling our stadium to ourselves? I think we know the answer.